the QMS Auditor Transition Series, Module 5, Process Design and Performance Evaluation.
What is a process anyway? So a process is nothing more than transforming inputs into outputs. You'll see here in this illustration, inputs are the requirements specified, including resources, interrelated or interacting activities that happen, plus control methods within the process itself, and then the output, which is the requirements satisfied or the results of the process. Typically, process outputs and overall process performance is evaluated through effectiveness or ability to achieve desired results, and efficiency, which is results achieved versus resources used. The ISO 9001 standard at clause 0.3 process approach has broken down a single process in the various elements of that single process. We have sources of input, inputs, activities, outputs, and receivers of outputs. This is a review. We saw this slide in an earlier module. The process approach. The process approach is any activity or set of activities that uses resources to transform inputs to outputs. The systematic identification and management of the process is employed within an organization, and particularly the interaction between such processes is referred to as the process approach. This illustration shows the traditional departmental approach, where you have functional silos, you have a department that is isolated and not connected to other departments. In this illustration, you see the process approach. Process 1, 2, 3, and 4 are clearly distinct processes, and they flow across multiple departments. However, it's probably not that simple. Processes typically look more so like this, where let's say the material management process is the yellow arrow. The material is likely to come in from an outside source, an outside provider, into Department A. Let's say Department A is either material management or the warehouse, and you see the material then flows from Department C to D. So this makes a process approach to managing and a process approach to auditing a bit more tricky, because you're more than likely going to have to go through multiple departments, multiple channels, multiple groups of personnel in order to follow the process approach to auditing. The automotive process approach, as defined in the rules, IATF rules, section 5.8, conducting on-site audit activities, is defined in the following. The certification body shall have a process for conducting on-site audits, taking into consideration the relevant guidance provided in ISO 19011, the IATF Auditor Guide for ISO TS 6949, and utilizing the automotive process approach. The automotive process approach ensures that priority is given to questioning the client's processes, the sequence and interaction, and performance against the measures defined, with a focus on the processes which directly impact the customer. Furthermore, the automotive process approach states questioning the process objectives and targets, with a focus on where targets are not being met, and focus on issues that have the greatest impact on the customer. Questioning what plans are in place to ensure targets are met, and corrective action plans where objectives are not being met. Following audit trails to linkages between customer concerns, performance against objectives, and relevant process documents, such as control plans, FMEAs, etc. And finally, questioning the client's process for gathering, communicating, and implementing customer-specific requirements. So these are the rules of the road related to your registrar coming in and auditing you using an automotive process approach. So these are the rules that have been set forth to guide the actual certification bodies. You can find more about the automotive process approach online following this link, or by simply putting in automotive process approach in our website's search bar. So let's take a moment to discuss turtle diagrams and how they can be used for process mapping. So what is a turtle diagram? A turtle diagram is a quality tool used to visually display process characteristics such as inputs, outputs or expectations, criteria or metrics, and other high-level information to assist in the effective execution and improvement of business processes. You can see here the layout of the turtle, which is the head on the left, the shell and the various patterns on the shell, and the tail on the right. I was informed by a student about 3 years ago that the turtle, after probably 10 years of being presented, was in fact 180 degrees in the wrong direction. So I'll let you think about that for a second. Input, process, output. So that's a turtle diagram. So let's talk about some facts related to turtle diagrams. First of all, there's no requirement per 9001. It may be used as a lean documentation tool. It helps define necessary resources, which is one of the reasons that I strongly recommend using turtle diagrams. It helps define process expectations and key process indicators. It gives a visual instruction versus text or work instruction or SOP. And it's a one-page plan for every key business process you've identified within your management system. So here's an example of a one-page process map or turtle diagram. Let's break this down into further detail. So first of all, inputs, process, outputs, that's the primary lane. And then you have what, how, who, and the criteria, objectives and targets for that turtle diagram. So the core of the turtle diagram are these three shapes here: your inputs, process, and outputs. The inputs, here you enter details of the actual process inputs, such as documents, materials, schedules, requirements, information, etc. In the middle, this is the process itself, so enter customer support or management process. For example, purchasing, if you're using a turtle diagram to define the purchasing process, then you put purchasing in this box here. And then outputs, enter details of the actual process output, such as product, documentation, records, etc., linked to an actual measure of effectiveness. And that measure we will put in the criteria box coming up here. On the top, you have the what and the who. So the what is equipment and material. You enter details of the machine, materials, test equipment, computer system, software, etc. that's used in the process in this box. And then who, personnel and competencies. You enter the personnel requirements, including special skills, competency requirements, training requirements, restrictions, etc. Typically, this box will involve a cross-functional group of people, not just coming from one department, but various roles in various departments. On the bottom, you have the fields how. How is documentation methods. You enter linked process controls, support processes, instruction procedures, setup illustrations, specific methods used, etc. In this box, I typically see references to key procedures, work instructions, setup instructions, that sort of thing. And then finally on the bottom right, we have criteria, objectives, and targets. So enter the measures of the process effectiveness and efficiency, such as goals, targets, objectives, etc. So there's a bit of a controversy between the turtle diagrams, whether they're valuable or not. My question to you is, what ISO requirement prompts the use of turtle diagrams? What other tools can be used besides a turtle diagram? And what is used in your organization to define the processes of your QMS, your expectations for your QMS, metrics, etc.? So quickly to review my answers to these questions, I would say for item number 1, clause 4.1 is what prompts me to use a turtle diagram, defining the context of the organization, criteria, resource needs, etc., whether it be IATF 16949, ISO 9001, 2008, 2015. All of those have requirements associated with defining your QMS, defining the processes, defining resources, metrics, so on and so forth. So in my opinion, the turtle diagram does a great job at managing and helping companies with managing those requirements. Number 2, what other tools can be used? SIPOC diagrams can be used. SIPOC's different character illustrations can be used. I've seen whiteboard character animation created to help to define the story of an organization, where it is and where it wants to be and how it measures itself. For me, that's a little bit too complex for most of our customers, hence the use of a turtle diagram or SIPOC diagram. SIPOC is supplier, input, process, output, and customer. So it's expanded a little bit on the left and right side of a turtle. But to me, what a SIPOC diagram lacks is defining resources and how the turtle diagram or how the process is measured. So what is used in your organization, that's going to vary from one company to the next. So ask yourself, do you know what you use? And if you do use it, is it effective? Is it being used by the process owners and driven and maintained by the process owner themselves? So let's look at the PDCA model, which is Plan, Do, Check, Act, and how it connects to auditing, the process of auditing. Audit objectives. Audits are conducted for one or more of the following reasons: to ensure compliance to the requirements of internal, international, and industry standards and customer-specific requirements, to determine the effectiveness of the implemented system in meeting specified objectives, be it quality, environmental, financial, etc., to explore opportunities for improvement, to prevent problems before they occur, such as risk-based thinking, to meet statutory and regulatory requirements, to provide feedback to top management through a representative sample of the current condition of the management system, or to obtain a second or third party recognition, such as registration, accreditation, etc. Auditing in ISO 9001:2015 requires that audits be conducted at planned intervals to provide information on meeting QMS requirements, meeting standard requirements, and that your standard requirements in QMS are effectively implemented and maintained. Auditing programs. So what do auditing programs have to consider in the 2015 version? First of all, process importance. How important is the process internally and to the customer? Changes. What changes have you experienced with regard to the process? Or what upcoming changes are coming that you want to get ahead of and evaluate risk for, etc.? And what were your previous audit results? Were they good, bad, as expected? Those 3 items need to be evaluated in terms of consideration for scheduling and conducting audits. Audits often also need to be conducted while defining audit criteria and the scope very clearly, so not only the auditee but the auditor knows exactly what's going to be audited, when, and what the criteria is. Auditor selection and conducting audits need to be done objectively, so with objectivity and also impartiality. And actually there's a requirement in ISO 9001-2008 that has been removed, which stated auditors shall not audit their own work. So I guess that means now you can audit your own work, you just have to maintain objectivity and impartiality in doing so. Audit results. They need to be reported to relevant management. There needs to be undue delay in corrective action. Audit results need to be retained as documented information, also known as keeping a record for audits, to provide evidence of an effective audit program and evidence of audit results. And there's a note referring to ISO 19011, which is a guidance document on management system audits. Looking at the metrics here, this is a business goal number 3 scorecard. This is just an example scorecard. The question is, where do we audit? And the answer is very, very simple. Ask your 3-year-old. Ask your 5-year-old. Where are the good spots? Where are the bad spots? And they'll easily tell you, you need to audit the red. You need to look at the yellow, assuming that the data is accurate, and red means bad, yellow means concern, and green means good. So making that assumption, that's how easy it is. You want to always start with data. So you can see the example here, start with data. Several of the indicators show red, so that's a concern. That's something that needs to be evaluated for higher importance or a status that is poor, and consideration should be in place for bumping up the audit, increasing the audit frequency, the depth of the audit, etc. So what are the measures here telling us? Who is at fault? Which employees should be punished? If that's what you're thinking when looking at this slide, then you need to evaluate your thought process. The first one, what are the measures here telling us? Definitely there are some stories and audit trails that can be gathered from looking at the data, and that becomes a starting point for putting an audit plan together and your audit checklist questions. But who's at fault and who should be punished should not be considered as a part of the audit. So we're auditing the process, not the people. So that's a bit of a trick question for the last 2 points there.